Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Record of Sword-Forged Worlds, a unofficial Sword World podcast. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have two of my good brothers here in the temple. We have the man who is but a letter, good brother A.
Hello, everybody.
And we have the man losing arguments to himself, good brother Hydra.
Happy post-Merca and Kanukistan Day. I hope everyone had fun.
I certainly did, even if it involved me getting thrown out of a pub again for being a worst Irish tenor.
I mean, like, you always get thrown out of pubs.
Yes. I have a list akin to Jericho's list of moves of the number of ones I've gotten thrown out for either abusing the jukebox or being so bad at Irish tenor that they don't want to hear it.
You gotta make it into tradition.
Mm-hmm. So, the last few weeks, when we haven't covered Crunch, we've covered the ins and outs in the political landscapes of the continents of Thrastier and Alflame. For this particular episode, we're going to be looking at a bit beyond that and to the worlds outside of Raxia. Now, something I've mentioned in the past is that during the War of the Gods, a lot of parts of Raxia got cut off and became what would be known as bubble worlds. This is a concept that would be revisited more recently in Sword World. When I say recently, I mean within the last 2 years. But in addition to that, there has been the introduction of the Realm of Fairies with Fairyland and more detail on the Demon Realm. Demons appeared in 2.0, but in 2.5 they were a much bigger deal, especially with the introduction of the Shallow Abyss. And because of that, we still have worlds to explore outside of Raxia, and a lot of them having their own themes. Now, I will admit with the first two, it was kind of tricky because there isn't a dedicated book to them in the usual sense, but there are books that go into detail with them. And the one realm that has the least amount of detail that we can get as far as books dedicated to it is Fairyland. Now, it might be tempting to look at Fairyland the way you would look at, say, the Feywild in D&D. That's not actually the case because Fairyland is a world that was created by an ancient fairy tamer. It was created by Amidala Hamizgardras during the ancient magic civilization period, also known as the Durandal era. It is meant to be this paradise, one that could be a sanctuary for fairies. The problem is, it is so good at being a paradise that it's easy to get lost or lose your sense of time in it. Because it's described as this dreamlike paradise that someone could go into. On the other hand, it in the century sense, especially after everything that happened during the DT, access to knowledge of it had been significantly reduced. However, with the Fairy Garden adventure, there was the idea of, well, adventurers can try and venture in, especially since it does still have a lot of magic items from the magic civilization. One of them in particular is the Crown of the Fairy King that could subdue any fairy if it exists.
And even if it does, at what cost?
But this is also where you have things like Olden fairies. These are the higher tier fairies that can be summoned by high-level fairy tamers, but are rarely seen. In fact, they're rare enough that normally, if you're dealing with fairy-type enemies, a fairy tamer automatically passes the monster knowledge check. With Olden fairies, no, they have to roll it like any other monster type. They know that they belong to the category of fairies, but that's as far as they would know normally. The other thing is sprites, which can just throw dust on people and cast magic. But unlike in Raxia, fairies in Fairyland don't need a mana supply. The world itself is so rich in mana that they don't need any of that. Though some fairies are hedonists and will want to have sweets or alcohol be provided for them. And because of that, there's always a feast going on somewhere in Fairyland. But I know someone might look at the feast and go, "Hey, free food." If you've read Hansel and Gretel, you really shouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to make that joke, but you did it for me.
Oh. Now, as far as knowing where the cardinal directions are on the compass, there's always a bell tower at each of the cardinal directions. But that doesn't mean you can't get lost. In fact, there are plenty of ways to get lost when it comes to exploring Fairyland.
I mean, it wouldn't be a land full of fairies if there wasn't the underlying threat of getting lost.
And there is also the fact that one of the major caretakers of Fairyland is a type of Olden fairy, a Kate She. Some of you who played Final Fantasy VII will think you know how that's supposed to be said, and I guarantee you are saying it wrong.
Yeah, I never did get the original pronunciation of his name.
Yeah, it is Kate She. I know you may look at the spelling and think that that's odd, but remember, a lot of the native languages of the British Isles are their own brand of weird.
That's really weird. Like, why would anybody go and take a bunch of random letters and just throw them together? Who goes looks at AODH and be like, hey, let's just call that A.
Like you said, it's British, so can we really expect much sense from them?
I mean, it's not really British. It's more of the older languages that were there before, like, the Romans showed up, and the Romans were like, hey, we want you to use this alphabet. And natives are like, okay, and they started taking the piss about it.
There's also the fact that language is just weird.
True.
But language, and that's not even getting into some of the way too many variations of languages in parts of Europe or Asia. Like that could be a conversation for days.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about the fictional world and not the languages.
Though, obviously, going into Fairyland, if you're not a tamer, it's best to have fairy glasses, which is a magic item that allows anyone to see fairies and speak Sylvan. Even rune folk who normally can't do that.
I mean, I could definitely understand how glasses could grant you sight, but language as well, that's a new one.
Oh. Yep. I suppose if I were to draw a parallel, consider the whole glasses thing in the first Bayonetta.
Oh,
How
right,
Luca,
Yeah.
right.
how in order to see angels and demons, Luca needed those glasses. But in addition to that, there is a fairy king that is asleep. There are a lot of the more detailed stuff when it comes to Fairyland is available in the Fairy Garden campaign. A lot of it I'm trying my best not to spoil. But because you're dealing with fairies, that campaign has a whole thing about fairy pranks.
I mean, it's not really spoilers considering that fairies are natural pranksters.
Yeah, which I know some of you may hear that and say, well, wouldn't you get along with them great then? Not really. There is a art to pranking.
Yeah, our levels of pranks are socially acceptable pranks. Fairies is on a whole other level.
But you can however have too much of Fairyland on you and not be allowed to leave. That is something to keep in mind.
So no taking the scenic route. You got a job, you get in, do it, and get out.
Oh, you can. You can take the scenic route, but it does have its own costs. Something else to note is that within the area there is a mineral known as fairy ore. This can be collected, and there are 6 types, one for each type of fairy. They are one of the main sources of mana for people going in. But it is a lot of the adventure itself is a semi-randomized crawl with each area having its own events. Although, given what you had a similar thing going on with Mist Castle, and in both cases, you can have a situation later on if you end up exploring as much as we did, where you end up rolling results that you already have on the map.
That would make sense for Fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just pictured if a Fairyland was effectively like a roguelike game like on PC or something.
Because of the way that it works, you could potentially run it solo. You're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to do a few things in advance, but it is possible.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can humanoids can live in Fairyland without too much problem, but if you stay in there for too long, you become too influenced. You start to assimilate with the place, i.e., your body is too adapted to it, and you won't be able to leave. Normally, this assimilation level is at 0, but it can increase through a few means. One of them is if you get killed and resurrected in there, and there is one pavilion that will resurrect you if it happens. If you try and escape from combat, that can happen. If you get pranked by a fairy, that can happen. Or if you get it automatically for every 10 days you're there.
I'm amazed they didn't put in eating enough of their food and drinks as well.
No, though there are places where this level can be reduced. So it's not like you have to try and do everything in 10 days. What do you think this is? Valkyrie profile?
No, that's fair.
That would have been a funny reference.
I know some people would expect me to make a Lightning Returns joke when it comes to the time limit, but no, I'm gonna bring up Valkyrie profile because that was even more egregious.
Indeed. Like, let's be frank, Valkyrie profile was definitely a good game, and especially the PSP remake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have that remake. I actually prefer it over the PS1 version on some levels. There's also the time somebody took the sprites and made a fighting game out of it.
Cards of Saga Wars?
No, this was a different project. Though I do appreciate the sprite work in Card Sagas Wars. Even if it took the better part of a decade for us to get it in a playable state. While at the same time keep teasing me with all the sprites that were made for it.
Hey, Squeenix, can you give us a proper VP game already? And I'm not talking about that one you released a few years back.
I think the obstacle regarding that is the fact that I believe that was both that you have to deal with both Enix and Tri-Ace wanting a say in it.
Figures.
And Tri-Ace is too focused on doing Star Ocean things these days. I will have to go back and look at Valkyrie Elysium. But that's a whole other story. And I know I've skimmed a bunch when it comes to Fairyland, but that's because the Fairy Garden Adventure is one I really think should be looked at first. Plus, you know, it's a fairy paradise. There's not a whole lot I can really say beyond that.
Yeah, like you said, it's Fairyland, and we're trying to avoid spoilers.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the other hand, the Abyss and the Demon Realm, that I have more to say about.
Rip and tear until it is all done. And hello, Arya.
But when it comes to the demon realm and subsequently the abyss, there's been a lot of nods here and there throughout different materials, but the biggest focus that it got was in the Abyss Breaker book. This was also the book that gave us the Abyss Gazer and Dark Hunter classes. So, as I mentioned, demons have a much bigger footprint on Alflame than they did in Terrastier. And a big part of that is the big old wall of the abyss that's at the far north. If you guys remember the map of Alflame, you may remember the big abyss bubble at the northern end.
Yes. Actually, I think it's still in this side chat if you just scroll up a bit.
Mm-hmm. There is an implication that the demon realm is connected to other worlds as well, but no one's been able to verify. This is used as I think this was used as a replay at one point to have characters from 2.5 cross over into the 1.0 world,
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, that would mean that it's possible Carla might pay us a visit.
Given how difficult it is to cross between them, and the only people who may even be successful at that are the grass runners, and they're not talking. I don't think you have to worry about that. But obviously, the Abyss was formed through reckless use of demon summoning by the Wizard Kings in the Magic Civilization.
I mean, it's not as if they're making deals with demons and never bites you in the back or in the ass.
The intent originally was to use demons as soldiers for their own conflicts. But the rule of escalation happened, and they needed to summon and control more demons. And when you've got more and more wizards summoning more and more demons, eventually things started to destabilize and the abyss began to form. A portal that they could not close.
Shit hits the fan.
Some Wizard Kings tried to cooperate and try to seal it. That didn't work, and the demons kept leaking out. So the Wall of the Abyss, a enormous structure, was put together to try and contain it. And while that worked for a while, it wasn't perfect. And shortly after the end of the Durandal era, these shallow abysses, miniaturized versions of the abyss, started showing up across Alframe. Even after 3,000 years, the complete eradication of the demons and of the shallow abyss has not happened.
I mean, it's not as if killing them here in the physical world will be sufficient. You have to go there and kill them in their point of origin.
Which, you go in there, you're going to be completely outnumbered. But as far as how big the abyss to the north is, nobody's been able to go around the whole thing to confirm. Some say it's several kilometers in diameter, and others say it's less. But anyone who's tried to investigate at that level hasn't come back. And, of course, people who try to go in the abyss don't come back either. And anyone who tries to approach it tends to have their mind messed with.
Like, it's not as if you're going on a vacation or anything, you're literally visiting hell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people would see that as a vacation.
Yep.
Well, maybe if you're Doomslayer, but...
Or Arya.
Wouldn't be surprised if the two are related somehow.
Oh, that's a terrifying thought. But during the Magitech civilization period, there were attempts to try and deal with the Abyss using constructs and Magitech soldiers. Most didn't come back. Some were retrieved, and it looked like they had aged a century, and some of them even went berserk after they were recovered.
Okay, so time flows differently there. That's always nice to know.
Yep. At one point they tried to send Runefolk, but Runefolk that came back had intense hatred towards humanoids, leading to multiple murders. Understandably, that terminated the experiment. But as far as the Wall of the Abyss and how big it is, imagine, if you will, Wall Maria on... Actually, not Wall Maria. The wall between the old and new world in One Piece is a good reference point for scale.
That's a pretty big wall.
Mm-hmm. Now, the height of the wall is never specified, but it's believed to be about 5,000 kilometers.
Where did the people
Or rather,
get all the raw
the length of the wall is 5,000 kilometers. The height is probably is about 30 meters.
Well done. I'm doing some math. I tried to find out how that sounds in freedom.
Mm-hmm. But essentially, the length of the wall is almost as long as the Great Wall of China.
All right, 30 meters, you said, Miltra? That's about just shy of 100 feet.
Mm-hmm. Though it's also stated that the Wall of the Abyss goes into the sea and encloses an area akin to the Arctic Circle. And trying to go that far north is cold enough that even demons freeze to death.
And so we're pretty much well past it. Even Canadian and Minnesota, we're probably into really cold ass places of the world.
Yeah, Niflheim.
That's it. That was the name I was searching for.
Mm-hmm. Now, shallow abysses are a microcosm of the full abyss. They tend to appear in these bubbles that can show up just about anywhere, and there's no way to really predict where they're going to show up. They look like jet black holes in space. Now some of them they start out about the size of a average adult's wingspan. But if they're left alone, they will grow. And they will keep growing. In some cases, entire nations or whole cities can be swallowed up by these things.
Alright, a giant big ball of black.
Mm-hmm. Now, fortunately, it's easy to spot where one shows up, because whenever it does, an aurora appears. Some say that this aurora is a blessing from the goddess Harula. Others say no, it's an advance warning. But the aurora only lasts for a few days. A shallow abyss, once it gets to a certain size, it connects with the demon realm and starts summoning demons. And by that point, the Adventurers Guild has to get called in. If there's any solace, shallow abysses don't appear all that often.
So it's not as if you just turn on the TV and it says, yeah, we're expecting shallow abysses all day.
On the other hand, sometimes they're not always formed on the surface. Sometimes they can show up underground, sometimes in the air, sometimes in the mountains. This kind of thing makes it difficult to discover where they are.
Or heaven forbid if there's one high in the sky.
Yeah, that can happen. But as a general rule, if you start seeing demons around, there's probably a shallow abyss that's been overlooked in the area. And the thing that makes them even more troublesome is the primary way out is to find the abyss core and destroy it. Now, one might think, oh, you just find the thing and smash it and then you get out. You guys should know all too well that finding the target is the hard part.
And there's gonna be plenty of bodyguards.
The core will spawn guardians. There are some barbarous who are exceptions to this rule, but they are very, very rare. And if you do manage to destroy an abyss core, there will be a rift that connects to the real world that lasts for about 1 hour and at minimum, and a few days at most. You go through it, you enter back at the entry point you went in. If you don't use that exit, the shallow abyss will start to collapse, and everybody inside it will be ejected somewhere.
Anywhere.
Yep.
I mean, you always gotta have the story arc where the party has to get back together.
Worst case scenario, you might end up getting ejected into another shallow abyss.
That would actually be hilarious. Just have an entire campaign where the party goes from one shallow abyss to another.
I could definitely see the dice gods screwing the party over by saying, yeah, out of the frying pan and into another one.
Yep. On the other hand, some people who've supposedly stayed too long in them can't even see the exits. However, now as far as the appearance of them, they tend to take on the inside. They tend to take on the appearance of the environment that they're surrounding. But this can be influenced by things like historical connections within the area that are inhabited by intelligent beings, or just being a mirror of where it showed up. Like an abyss that showed up in a forest, the inside of it will look like a forest. But the landscapes are typically a reflection of thoughts, memories, and intense emotions of people that existed in that area. So a shallow abyss that appears on a battlefield might recreate past battles. If it's a fallen kingdom, it might project its old days of glory. And sometimes even wishes can be manifest in a shallow abyss. There are cases where children were trapped in one, and by the time they came out, they were full-grown adults. Not through passage of time, but just through wishing to be grown up. And all of a sudden they are.
That's
There's the
quite the literal depiction of be careful what you wish for.
Mhm. There are also rumors of mythical beasts being in shallow abysses and taking human forms. The point
Well,
is, when it comes to what you'd expect to see in a shallow abyss, there is no consistency. And that is the most consistent thing about them. And because of that, sometimes the monsters within them are monsters that were just caught in the expansion of an abyss. Other times it's ones that the abyss core manifests. And of course, demons.
I mean, can't forget about the daemons.
hmm And people who are in shallow abysses for too long tend to have their essence be distorted. Some manifest certain skills, while others undergo mutations. The longer they stay in there, the more anomalous they become. So think of it going from normal to chaos spawn. Uh, and even apparitions will be a case of this makes no sense, like seeing polar-like monsters in a blazing summer. Oh. And of
Or
course,
Floridian, or a giant enemy crab.
I mean, everything does evolve into crabs, so that makes the most sense.
But it's because of that it takes a certain amount of willpower to endure being in one. And as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, races like Abyssborn are humanoids that were born in a shallow abyss. Oh. Riona's character in Operation Mist was one of them. Oh. The character that Theo had when he was briefly on was also in that, even if it was a different form of it. But naturally, there have been some attempts to try and deify these shallow abysses, leading to cults like the Abyssal Church. And some of them outright try messing around with demon summoning. Or in some cases, they try to intentionally expand abysses.
Gotta have to have our cultists somehow.
And while they do have churches, they are heavily guarded, usually with stolen magitech. Oh.
Yeah, it's not like they could just go to the center of town and say, "Hey, I'm a demon worshiper."
I mean, they can, but I don't think they'll be getting the reaction that they hope for.
Well, probably if you're doing that to piss off a whole bunch of people, that's a great way how to do it.
Yep. Now, when it comes to demons, as mentioned, if you kick their ass in Raxia, they don't really care because that's just a temporary body. And when it comes to the when it comes to the real world, when it comes to the not the real world, but when it comes to their worlds, oddly enough, because of the fact that they can't just respawn, they are far more cautious about revealing themselves. And it's up in the air whether or not their appearance on Raxia matches their appearance in the demon world. There's also a theory that using resurrection magic in the demon world doesn't inflict soul scars.
But there's no confirmed case of it either.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there is still a pecking order, which means that even if there's a lot of freedom within the demon world, it is still a case where lesser demons don't want to get the attention of greater demons, and greater demons don't want to get the attention of other greater demons, and none of them want to get the attention of archdemons.
I mean, is it really a demon world if there ain't a pecking order?
It kind of reminds me of the Warp in 40K.
I have made that comparison, though I'd say the demon world has more in common with Chaos Undivided than anything else. Especially since the whole alignment of there's no 4 chaos gods to deal with. There are there are just varying levels of powerful demons.
And a shit ton of politics.
It's also speculated that the mad god Laris lives in there. Instead of in heaven with the other gods.
I mean, a wise man once said, bureaucrats were born in hell.
Not just bureaucrats, politicians as well, depending on the ilk.
Yep. On the other hand, there's been speculation that demons are actually servants of Laris, and given some of the spells that priests of Laris can have access to, there might be something to that.
That would be funny. Kind of reminds me of a book I read one time where it turns out the church were actually working for a demon the entire time. Like after the demon killed the god they were worshiping.
But before we get into the bubble worlds, what do you guys think of Fairyland and the demon world?
I mean, Fairyland makes sense considering that we already had the fairy tamers and everything, so it makes sense that the Fae have their own lands. The Abyss, we do need our classical band guys to adventure against.
I do like the idea of a fairy tamer made Fairyland. It gives the implication that powerful sorcerers and mages could potentially make other realms like that.
And there is there is also the fact that with the way demons are used, while I could draw a comparison to the Warp, I think this is the case of two things drawing upon the same source, because I would actually go especially given some of the stuff that inspired Ryo Mizuno, I would go so far as to say that the bigger inspiration is chaos via the Elric saga.
Ah, the Elric saga.
Yeah, that's definitely a better fit.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Especially given the approach that we've seen with demons. Like, you don't really, in Warhammer you have the factioning of the different demons, with rare exceptions like Chaos Spawn, which you shouldn't say. But when you look at the demons in Sword World, it's not really the case there. It's a bunch of amalgamation of horrible shit, but it's not like there's some central theme that they all stick to. The only god there is Laris.
The demons in this setting kind of reminds me more like the ones that you'd find in just about any Doom game.
That would be closer to the mark. I still say the closest to the mark would be Elric, especially given Chaos screwing with him, and both Law and Chaos screw around in that universe. Neither Law or Chaos and their pantheons are nice.
Yeah.
But before we get into the Bubble Worlds, which are their own beast, and when it comes to the Abyss Breaker book, we will get into that in more detail down the road. Just not tonight. We're gonna take a break for a few minutes, and then we're gonna delve into the Bubble Worlds. I'm not gonna delve too much into the crunch of them, but there are some things crunch-wise I will talk about. And we'll be setting the stage for when we eventually cover those books in detail. So, see you all in a few. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. And now when it comes to the idea of bubble worlds, this was, as I mentioned, this was something lampshaded with the War of the Gods, that there were parts of Raxia that got cut off because of all the shit that happened when gods of 2 pantheons are going up against, and later on 3 pantheons are going up against each other. And those cut-off worlds would become bubble worlds. These bubble worlds are smaller than Raxia and act as their own micro-dimension that you can go into and go out of, and have their own rules. Now, the first of these was Monochromatica, which I can best describe as a monochrome world where magic is color and is also nightmare fuel.
So, would it be safe to say that this is the kind of world where you say, this is like purple?
Yeah, a lot of people who have the ability, or rather stain of color, get that power from certain deities. On the other hand, some of those deities will put their touch on individuals who have returned from death. And the closer one is to being connected to the gods, especially through their particular sigils, you run the risk of what's known as color overflow, which disperses those colors around you.
Walking rainbow, how cute.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Monochromatica is called that because the entire world only appears in shades of black and white. On the other hand, one of the main energy sources is things like red blood circuits, which borrows the power of people who are returned from death to secure a colored sphere that acts as a power source.
Huh.
Mainly color-stained monsters known as deformities have them. And there's an organization called the Red Blood Engine that basically acts as the equivalent of an adventurer's guild.
I mean, with names like those, it's not like they're foreshadowing something.
But if you're not a return from death, or you're a visitor from outside Monochromatica, you can't use magic or the divine gifts that the gods give. PCs that enter Monochromatica are treated as returned from death. And Every time you die, you end up being returned from death even further, which deepens the connection with the god to the point where things go out of control. And at the end stage of that, you end up losing self-awareness and becoming a deformed.
So it's not like you're playing Dark Souls, so you got the infinite continues.
No. Though a deformed can be permanently killed in certain ways. Of course, if you don't do that way, then they're just going to come back again. But the transformation from being a return from death to a deformed is known as color overflow. And once you go through with that, you're basically an NPC now.
That's probably a fate even worse than death.
Mm-hmm. And even worse, the reason it's called color overflow is someone who turns into a deformed, the surrounding area is tainted by colors. This is what's known as a stained land.
A walking rainbow.
Mm-hmm. This can lead to color contamination. In addition to that, return from deaths and deforms have abilities known as gifts. These are divine powers given by the gods of Monochromatica. And if it isn't obvious, no matter what your deity is, if you're a priest PC coming in, any of your divine magic is treated as if it's a minor god from out of domain. Meaning priests can do their divine magic, but they have to spend more. And sometimes using those gifts can result in a wild effect known as a spill. And it should be noted that contracts have a certain depth. The more you use their gifts and the more that you cause spills, the more the gods like, and they give you more stuff until you can't bear the load. But when a gift is used, it tends to appear with colors on the body and around them. Usually with some sort of contract seal, of which there are 4 types: the Morning Shadow, the Flying Ring, Twilight, and Dawn. And on the other thing that I should note, just on a crunch side of things, Monochromatica does use grid combat, and a lot of the gifts are tied to it. And if you're thinking, oh, this is going to be like standard D&D combat. Nope. It's using grid combat, but it is not using grid combat the way you think it is.
I think that's like something we're going to touch upon in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too much into the crunch of Monochromatica, because that's not the purpose here. But like outside of the whole black and white thing, a lot of the typical rules about technology level with Raxia apply to Monochromatica. There are humanoids in Barbarous. There are humanoids in Barbarous in these bubble worlds. Sometimes they still have that antagonistic attitude towards each other. In some bubble worlds, one side overwhelms the other.
Yeah, kind of
But-
reminds me of World of Warcraft, where it was either predominantly Alliance or Horde.
Oh. When it comes to priests, if you're a priest of one of the ancient gods, you can use magic in a bubble world without any problem. A major god, you're going to be spending more. And a minor god, you're going to be spending even more. Unless you build a shrine.
Like a shrine doesn't have to be a giant building, right? It could just be a simple altar, right?
Depends. Now that's only the case with major gods. If you built the shrine of a minor god, you're still having to consume more mana than normal. Because for minor gods, for all intents and purposes, you're going to either be paying out the ass or you just can't use it. Though, fortunately, you don't have to deal with a whole different set of money because the god of money still has influence, so thus gamels are still the primary currency.
I mean, money talks.
Yep, say it with me, kids. Money talks, bullshit walks. But as far as magic in bubble worlds, true speech, spiritualism, fairy magic, and so on, they can still be used as normal. And the same thing goes with things like techniques, spell songs, evocations, stratagems, and the like. All that can be used. Because having you adventure into a whole new world where one part of your kit is no longer usable, that'd be real stupid. What kind of idiot would design a adventure where you do that?
You know, the world may never know.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to suck at game design if you did.
Yep. But when it comes to Monochromatica specifically, there are gods that are exclusive to it. There are 5 of them that are considered the most well recognized. And I'd hesitate to call each of these gods good. Because you have Azraneps, the root of despair.
He seems like a nice guy.
Sometimes depicted as a giant serpent with 8 wings. Oh god, a Seraphim Quetzalcoatl. How's that for a nightmare?
Yeah, that's definitely quite the sight.
Ethereal, the dreaming goddess.
I mean, like I said, that's where everyone gets their nightmare fuel from, right?
Well, she is just a goddess of dreams. Though those could be dreams of the past, present, future, or possible happenings.
Oh, she's the one what Anakin effectively dreamt of his wife dying.
Her appearance is essentially a jellyfish woman. Like a woman with the head of a jellyfish, but with a human face. A face that is perpetually closed, as if asleep.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if there's probably people on the server who would say would.
Then there's Tyrkat, the Keeper of Boundaries, which is depicted as a goddess who safeguards lands and territories as well as boundaries, and is depicted as a beautiful woman from the waist up and a crimson giant spider from the waist down.
Strider. Nice.
Hmm. And unfortunately, I know at least one person who definitely would say would.
I don't.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh. Then there is Nerengatos, the goddess of time. Who it's believed that that time is dictated by her dance, and that time halts when she stops dancing.
No, I am not gonna make a Zawardo joke. That's too low. Even if that's not even low hanging fruit. That's just like fruit that was on the ground and was sitting there for weeks.
Yep. On the other hand, it's said she pauses her dance on occasion to hold a feast, at which time is suspended. And then there is Medoro, the formless chaos. Ooh, as far as what Medoro appears, it's a case of, I don't know. Medoro tends to take a different appearance anytime that they show up.
What was the name from that god in Skyrim that never picks up the same form twice? No, not Skyrim, but
Oblivion?
Oblivion, yeah.
Vivek?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But I think what's amusing is the majority of these big five deities are goddesses. The only ones that aren't are Medoro, whose gender is, I don't know, and
Fluid.
Yeah, and I know some people would say, does that mean they're gender fluid? It's like, no. It's a case of we have no one knows what they actually look like because they keep using different disguises. Oh. And Azraneps is depicted as a dark fire. Or, as I mentioned before, a giant serpent. And when it comes to people who are returned from death, even their possessions become colorful. On the other hand, if they give up those possessions, they lose their color over time. But ordinary folk cannot use magic. Only people who are returned from death can, as I mentioned. And there's also the fact that when one is returned from death, it is described that there is something that attracted the god's interest, and that's what forms the contract. It's not like one of the gods comes to them and offers the contract. No, it happens automatically if there's some kind of attachment.
So it's more of a case of a compatibility than a conscious effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Now, a return from death who's let go of their attachments can permanently die. Or if they resolve those attachments. But until they don't, the only way they can be killed is either a deformed or another returned from death. And individuals who are returned from death tend to get these side eyes from normal people. Mostly because everybody knows it's a matter of time before a return from death experiences color overflow and becomes a deformed. And the reason why a stained land is so dangerous, as mentioned before, because it'd be easy to say, well, if it's a stained land, wouldn't that just be a normal place with color? Why is that a problem? Normal people in Monochromatica can't live there, since that area is stained with the power of gods. Being in there, they are dyed by colors, transformed into return from death, or in worst case scenarios, into deformed. And remember, deformed will spread stained lands just as much. And this is one of those cases where I wish there was more color art of Monochromatica than some of the other settings. Because...
I see the pun you did there.
Yes. Because the way stained lands are described, it might be tempting to say, oh, it just looks like the normal colors of that area. That doesn't seem to match the description that they give. Quote, you might see a fantastical sight of trees tinted with pale pink thriving in a world dyed deep blue, scattering white petals in the wind. Or you might stumble upon forests and mountains painted entirely in intensely vivid primary and fluorescent colors. There might even be plants and animals with completely nonsensical colorings.
It's like a 5-year-old's coloring book.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, pretty much.
And even the laws of nature are distorted in stained lands.
Can't help but wonder what the fairies would think of such a world.
I have a feeling even they wouldn't go there.
Wow, you know it's bad when even the fairies are like, nah, we're good.
Mm-hmm. But I think it'd be better to look at a stained land as something akin to a shallow abyss. Something where the normal rules don't apply. Also, hello there, Riona. But on the first, within the slideshow, you do see a hint of what a deformed looks like, and it really hammers home the whole thing of why the use of color is almost nightmarish in Monochromatica.
It's almost as if someone that tries to put in the colors in a noir film or something.
Yep. I think that was done with that Pleasantville movie, but I don't remember too much about that. And even then, that was just normal color. We're talking throw every color in the rainbow in this thing, like it's a Mobius painting. But the big reason why deformed are also a problem is because they're they're basically overflowing with the power from the gods. If you look at a return from death as a cup that has had some water in it, a deformed is a cup that is overflowing and water is still being poured in it. And even though there aren't soul scars in the in terms of resurrection, there are ways for soul scars to occur, and that is if it's someone with lingering attachments isn't killed intentionally with murderous intent. In other words, if you kill someone who has strong enough desires and a want to accomplish things, that gives you a soul scar. Of course, if you get killed by a monster, since monsters are just instinctive, it won't happen there. On the other hand, there are crystals called colored spheres that are released when something that returned from death dies. That colored sphere is the crystallization of divine power within it, and that is used as a primary energy source within Monochromatica. Especially through machineries like red blood circuits. And because this is Sword World 2.5, red blood trains.
Due to...
So, hold on. So, it's a train that runs on blood.
It's not blood. Any red blood circuit is powered by a colored sphere.
Okay.
They're called that because the light that is emitted from them is a deep red.
Right, so there's no hemomancy here. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a different campaign setting in my library that does have a big focus on hemomancy the way you're thinking. This just isn't it. It's not blood, merely an evil glowing rock filled with demons, much more wholesome.
I mean, that is wholesome, because we all know the bad guys need to be in jail.
But
the soul stones are from Diablo.
Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest types of settlements are the multi-layered cities, which are exactly what you think they are and tend to look like fortresses. Though they don't have much in the way of swords of protection. And because they're guarded by strong outer walls, the common belief is we don't need these sort of protection. There are a few that are installed in the heart of a city, but not much. And when it comes to multi-layered cities, I guess the parallel I draw is Midgar in Final Fantasy VII. Because a lot of them are divided between the lower level, the mid-level, and the upper level. And, you know, kind of like how you have the upper and lower layer with Midgar. Although, I suppose I could also bring up Kirkwall in Dragon Age 2.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's that's doable as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it should be... It should be noted that when you become a Return from Death, you automatically get a contract seal, and as you develop, you can get more of them. Because the contract seals are a kind of currency for divine gifts. And when it comes to those particular gifts, these are ones that, because of the way grid combat works, they're built for this particular world and not much else. And to illustrate what I mean, let me show you guys the combat grid. I'm going to have to screen cap this and then put it in the side chat. I'd like to show it on the stream, but that's not going to be able to happen. So don't mind the fact that it's sideways.
All right. Yeah, I definitely see the standard grid.
Yeah, this is the combat grid for Monochromatica. It doesn't operate in the same way as like a standard combat grid.
Kind of does remind me of your system a little bit.
Hmm?
Of the Final Fantasy system. Is a front line area, a back line or ranged area.
This is loosely based on the simplified combat rules, which we will get to eventually, which does have a front row and back row.
Okay.
This is just expanding it a bit, and there is no diagonal movement. But it is worth noting that the more seals you have, the more contract depth you have. And the combination of seals that you have determine which god you have a contract with. If you have one of them with, for example, if you have one with more than 6, it could be the Daughter of Time you have a contract with. When you've got 3 or more in all 4 types, then the name of the god you're contracted with is revealed. Some effects will give you any 2 seals, some will give you a random one, and when you immediately start, you get a random seal. And of course, anytime you use a gift, there's a risk that you create a spill effect. You could think of this as overbleeding, like in Dark Heresy. Anytime you use a gift, you roll a D1. If you roll a 1, a spill happens. And certain gifts require you to have either certain contract depths or certain other gifts. and if you end up spilling, they can have an additional effect. The thing is, you've got no control over when it does, and when that spill happens, you're probably getting another seal from that spill. It's just you're not getting it immediately, you're getting it at the end of the session that generated it.
Mm-hmm.
And while it might be tempting to say, well, if I get more seals, then that's a good thing, right? Not entirely.
There's
Because
always a catch.
And in this case, that catch is possibly getting becoming a deformed because there's an because of a overflow. Oh. And on the other hand, this same kind of thing when it comes to spills applies just as much to monsters that have these gifts as much as it does PCs.
That actually sounds like an interesting twist.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes furthermore, having more contract seals means you can expand the effect. Doing so has its benefits and drawbacks, and you could kind of see certain extensions as its own version of meta magic. But once you have the name revealed that you're contracted with, you can end up getting a blessing. Although the form of that blessing is not always a good thing. For example, a contract with the Dreaming Goddess, you end up having dreams and you end up having visions and predictions in your own dreams, which can be a way for the GM to give clues. And even daydreams can do this.
Like you can just go. The GM is like, look, the players aren't picking up the clues. I'm just gonna give the character that I can give hints to a hint real quick.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, this also means you end up sleeping for longer, and when you are asleep, you're a lot harder to wake up.
So for all we know, we could be banging pots and pans and you still won't wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of my anima character.
Or pretty much just about any comedy skit where today you got this like giant monster that sleeps through everything, but then a simple sneeze and it just wakes up.
Yep. But to illustrate what I meant about Midoro, this is the appearance that they give him in the book. I'll put.
Well, that's not creepy at all.
And if you have Maduro's blessing, you can shape change. However, there are some catches. You cannot be precise with the transformation, for one. So if you said I want to concentrate for 10 minutes to try and transform into an elf, you'll transform into something that looks like an elf, but the specifics of the form you have no control over. So in game, they describe it as the PC determines what they want to transform into, and then the GM interprets that.
It's like a wish spell, but instead it determines your persona.
Mm-hmm.
Or fursona.
Well, just be careful. If you're gonna give your GM effectively a bit of a blank sheet to go ahead and say, this is what you look like, be careful that he ain't that much of a complete asshole.
Mm-hmm. You also have to determine one method that you can be detected by others. And you cannot lie about it.
Lie that you're not them, or
that this particular method to detect you, it was a lie, is something you can't do.
Okay.
Forced honesty. Well, that's definitely something.
Yep. And of course, even if you have this blessing, if you go to Raxia, you go straight back to your original form.
I mean, that's all well and good, but even if you do go back to your normal world, is there any benefit to visiting this bubble world?
There could be. But since this came out after the introduction of boss monsters, those show up in the book as well. And one of the higher tier ones is called a spectral dragon. I will transform into an elfish, but the only tell will be this T-shirt that says "I'm not an elf." And then the GM turns you into a Keebler elf.
I mean, elfish, that's kind of like what would happen
Surprise,
if you're like a half elf, half fish.
Yep. Oh. And hello there, Sig. Hello there, Sig. Welcome to the shit show. We have been currently covering the unique insanity that is the bubble worlds of Sword World, and in particular, Monochromatica. And even though we do have a rough map when it comes to this world, and no worries about being late. Better late than no showing.
You win the Doku Challenge this time, Sig. Though I'm not quite sure that counts, considering that you're part of the audience rather than here in the Discord.
Mm-hmm. But I will note this regarding Monochromatica, just as a wrap up. I do appreciate that hey there, Sig, I see you in the call now. I do appreciate
was gonna let you speak.
That instead of that, it's using the contract seals as a determining factor for what gifts you have instead of assigning a list of gifts to the gods. And hell, when you first get the contract and be a return from death, you don't even know what god you're gonna get.
I believe I said it before, it's a question of compatibility rather than conscious choice. So for all we know, it could be anyone.
Mm-hmm. And with a lot of the means that you get seals, it's semi-random.
So roll 2d6 and let's find out what you get.
Oh. I think in the... Yeah, it would still be 2d6, because keep in mind there's only four types of seals. So before we get to the final bubble world, because Demon Lord's Palace doesn't really feel like a bubble world. It feels more like a campaign book, so I'm not going to be covering it here. But what do you guys think of Monochromatica as a setting?
It's definitely a nice way how to throw in a twist into your standard campaign, and especially if you need a bit of a palate cleanser after a particularly big event previously.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know why, but I kept getting thoughts of, oddly enough, Claymore when I was reading through it.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love that.
That's interesting.
Ooh. I haven't read that in ages, but yeah.
I still need to finish the series. I have it on DVD.
The series is nice. A lot more happened in the manga. But a big reason why I get that vibe is the fact that the protagonists have significant powers, but they are constantly dancing on a razor's edge.
I mean, they're half of what they're hunting, so if they're not careful, they'll become it. Or worse.
Mm-hmm. And what did you happen to think of what we saw here?
The entire time I couldn't stop thinking about was it Mickey and the magic paintbrush? But
Epic
it's
Mickey.
Yeah, Epic Mickey. I thought it was that, but then I was like, that doesn't sound right. But it feels like they put a lot into this bubble world specifically.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like they, at some point, they wanted to make it its own full blown not campaign setting book, but they decided they're like, you know what, just throw it into Sword World.
I feel like saying throwing it into Sword World. I'm not. I think the bubble worlds were a way to experiment with the formula in ways that you couldn't do normally. Sort of like what Total War Sagas was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did check what the trigger when it comes to color overflow is. If you have a contract depth above 31.
That's actually an interesting number.
Once that happens, you suffer color overflow, you transform into a deformed, and you no longer have that character.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
God, it kind of reminds me of the dragon system from that Breath of Fire game no one wants to acknowledge.
I'll acknowledge it. I like Dragon Quarter.
Huh. Alright. Interesting bit of lore.
Hmm. I think it was a case of mistimed, but I do like Dragon Quarter. Oh. And I can see why that kind of direction would go, because spoilers for Breath of Fire 4, but at the good end of that, the merged Ryu Fo Lu chooses to cast the gods out.
Is it really a spoiler concern that it's a very old PS1 game?
Just making mention of that in case somebody decides to start some shit. Start some shit way after the fact. But the last bubble world that we're going to be going into a bit, and I know I said I wouldn't go into the crunch, because I'm saving going into crunch for much later, is Tales of the Dragon's Remains Blade, the bubble world that focuses on the Ryugai archipelago. This is as close as Sword World has gotten to legally distinct Japan.
Oh.
I mean, if that's a giant picture of the new way being played on the screen, yeah, I could see that.
Oh. But let me raise you one and show you guys the 2-page spread of the archipelago. And while it isn't a 1-to-1, it will be close enough.
Close enough is better than none.
Side chat, and you will see it.
Yep, I see it. That's actually pretty cool. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, that is
very original. Never seen that before.
I'd pay good money for that compass.
Yeah, that does look that little compass rose on the bottom right. That does look really nice.
But that's or you could probably 3D print one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the Ryugai archipelago, aka the Dragon Remains archipelago, is very much meant to be a Japanese style fantasy. Instead of adventurers, you play as Keibushi, who are investigating various phenomena as well as supernatural entities created by Aramitama. Now, those of you who saw the Kamigakure Valley of the Judge I did earlier this year, that will sound very familiar to you.
Indeed, it does.
But Aramitama, or wild spirits, are one of the primary threats. It's a collective for the spirit energy that causes threats in the archipelago, usually gathering around soul scars and causing effects to the land and the climate. It also is the origin point for Ayakashi and the Oni clan.
Of course.
The Oni clan is the way that this world brings in the Barbarous. And if you're thinking, do the Oni clan end up on the bad side of humanoids like in Raxia? Yes. And
I mean,
no
they're
worries,
only
Mario. Everybody's a rookie at some point. But there are also the Kanagi, whose job it is to pacify Aramitama and turn it into Nigi Mitama, or peaceful spirits. But PCs are, as I mentioned, Keibishis, or investigators. It is much like how you can purify soul scars in Raxia. You can use a purifying jewel to do that. The purifying jewels are based off of the Amairo Magatama. You know, the jewel that's one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan. Much like with Monochromatica, it has its own spin on the combat system. It's built more on a spacing system where supporters provide assistance rather than grid combat.
Huh.
And you do have, since we are dealing with a version of feudal Japan, you do have an honor system, which can be used to get honor equipment and titles. So basically a reincarnation of the reputation system that core Sword World has.
I mean, it is pretty smart to use a bubble world to go ahead and effectively, in some way, create Sword World 1.5.
Yeah, that... I wouldn't call this 1.5 Sword World. I'd say this is just a separate world, but unlike Monochromatica, there were a few like Monochromatica in its origin chapter doesn't have sample characters, whereas Tales of the Dragon's Remains does. And you remember how I said there was one type of catfolk that technically had made the jump to 2.5 from 2.0, but not exactly? One of the potential races is a Bakeneko.
Okay.
Because, of course.
And some of the... Obviously, human is another option, as well as Katsuchi.
I mean, at this point, why not throw in that, like, some kappas and maybe a kitsune or other figures like that?
Mm-hmm. And there are also Yukibitos. You know, for those who want to play as the Snow Woman.
Wait, is that what they're called? I thought they were called Yuki Onas.
Yuki Onna means Snow Woman. Bito is the equivalent of folk.
Alright.
Uh, but there are four, instead of the usual classes, there are four classes for the races. Samurai, ninja, jujutsushi, and fugeki. There are, and when it comes to races, obviously you have humans, standard fare. They even have the same sword's grace ability. Kadzuchi, or fire hammers, is the setting equivalent to dwarves. And even though they're not as short as dwarves, but instead of the usual hair colors, they tend to have either metallic black or iron-colored hair that turns silver to white as they get older. There's also not a demand for, or not a requirement of beards.
A dwarf without beards, that's almost sounds like heresy.
Well, they're not dwarves.
Anti-beard.
They are essentially fire folk. Oh.
I mean, you can't have a beard if you're around fire all the time.
But and they do still have beards, but it's not like a requirement, or the myth of they were born with beards or something like that. Oh. But Yukibito are akin to elves, which makes sense since elves in Raxia proper are always associated with water and dwarves with fire, so the setup we have here makes sense. They were at one point believed to be an all-female race, but that's not the case, even though people still use the term Yukime to refer to them. Though because of the fact that they're associated with water and not ice, their racial ability changed. And actually, I want to double check something. Specifically looking at the rare variants of elves in Sword World. Okay, they are I was right. The Yukibito are basically the snow elves in Sword World, even having the solemn ice racial ability.
Water,
Okay.
ice, they're effectively just the same thing, just in different temperatures.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Bake Neko, they are, in all but name, they're a reincarnation of the Miyakis race from 2.0.
That's definitely one way how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And they can because of that setup, their big thing is being able to turn into a cat. And classes are, as I mentioned before, are significantly simplified in terms of what you are getting. But
We would
it's
be able
best-
to take a pre-existing character into that bubble world to pick up one of the new classes and then get out and keep leveling the new class.
It'd be better to look at the classes within Ryugai. And I'm using Ryugai instead of Dragon Remains because I'm not paid by the syllable, as a packaging of multiple classes. For example, the Samurai is almost this package deal of fighter, grappler, marksman, and ranger. The ninja is fencer, scout, and ranger. The jujutsu is sorcerer, conjurer, and sage. The fugeki is fighter, grappler, priest, and sage. Some of them have there's abilities that they are proficient with in the corresponding ones, and ones that they are non-proficient, meaning they take a -2 penalty. You're basically substituting. So if you have 2 levels in fighter, you're treated as having 2 levels in samurai. If you have 2 levels in ranger, you're treated as having 2 levels in samurai with a -2 penalty.
Okay.
-2 on 2d6, it can be rather steep.
But because of that, this does mean that the samurai class has to work in various ways with the existing classes. So as far as the question of, well, if I have samurai via grappler, does that mean I still get chain attack? Yes.
Okay.
Because remember, grapplers get chain attack from the word go. When it comes to ninja, it has the same equipment restrictions as Fencer, and also the same critical benefit as Fencer. So you have the +1 to critical hit range, but you also have half strength when determining what equipment you can use. So that is something to keep in mind. When it comes to Jujutsushi, this is gonna be one of the main casters. They have the same restrictions as Sorcerer and Conjurer, meaning they take -4 penalty to their casting checks if they're wearing metal armor, or if wearing armor that specifically says Jujutsu prohibited. If you wear those, you can't do casting checks at all. They do have their own specific Jujutsu list of spells. But for the most part, they are your primary caster. Also, just to get it out of the way, Jujutsushi cannot use deep magic.
Probably for the best.
Because while it combines the characteristics of Sorcerer and Conjurer, you aren't actually learning both classes. That's why I said it's best to look at the classes from this bubble world as kit bashes of 3 or 4 different classes at once, but they aren't those specific classes. The only way to get deep magic, remember, is you have to take levels in Sorcerer and Conjurer. Which, by the way, even at low levels, that's not cheap.
They're both major? Hell no.
Yeah.
Taking 1 level each, that's going to be about 2,000 XP. Maybe you'll be able to get lucky if you take a background that already has one of them. But you're still going to be spending a lot.
Let alone to get to both of them at to level 2.
Mm-hmm. Now, diviners or fugekis use a different type of magic called fuyose. I'd say diviners are the equivalent of priests. And they have the same restrictions as the priest class.
Which makes sense.
You
Mhm.
instead of a holy symbol, you need a Fugeki seal. Oh. And
We're
for
gonna
that you
have
need
to have-
Fuyose.
We need to have our shrine maidens in this game somehow.
Mhm. Not only shrine maidens, but also Shinto priests.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. And Fuyose, it has its own spell list, but it works in a similar way to priests in the sense that you have the common spells and the special spells. The latter ones being ones you learn specifically from whatever deity you follow. Oh. When it comes, there are certain feats that are directly tied to specific classes. Those feats, as far as this setting is concerned, you can't use, but there are equivalents. On the other hand, on the other hand, when it comes to automatic ones, you're gonna get those. For example, going from Samurai level 2 to 3, you will get improved throw. As if you were leveling up Grappler.
Okay.
But I will note that there is a catch when it comes to something like chain attack. In order to get that, you need to have both Samurai and Fugeki at one level. On the other hand, if you wanted to get Keen Eyes, which you normally get by taking 5 levels in Scout, you just have to take 5 levels in Ninja. Though a Ninja at level 5 gets Keen Eyes like they would as a Scout, as well as Survivability like they would have got as a Ranger. So that is something to keep in mind. But when it comes to some of the mechanics, it's something we will get to at a later date. But Ryugai Archipelago is an archipelago that's divided into 5 islands. Toro, the Frozen Skull. And I will note the reason it's called Ryugai or Dragon Remains is because it's somewhat literal. It a deity had landed into this particular place and uplifted its inhabitants. And through its body created a chain of islands for them to live. Originally, all that existed in the world was just an endless ocean with nothing but fish.
It's almost as if they're taking a 1-for-1 myth of how Japan was created.
Very similar.
Yep. And going back to it, you have Kushu, the body province, the largest island in the archipelago, formed from his torso and from the god Ryujin's torso and limbs. Hokyoku, the northern wing, formed from one of his wings. It is cold, but not as cold as Toro. Toro is always in winter. So, for all intents and purposes, Toro is the equivalent of Hokkaido. Which Hokkaido isn't always in winter, but it is it is the closest to my kind of winters.
It's
And
the
mine as
equivalent-
well.
It's the equivalent of saying like it's always raining in Seattle. Does it always rain? No, but it does rain a lot.
Hmm. The other wing formed Nanshi, the southern wing, which has a very strong mining industry. And then at the southernmost is Shakubi, or the Scorched Tail, where it's dry as hell, has a lot of storms, and has a lot of volcanoes.
The Ring of Fire. Nice.
Hmm. I fell into a burning ring of fire. No, wait, never mind. That was just what happened. When I had Mexican last week.
Oh,
Yeah, let's just say there's a reason I never go to Taco Bell.
Why would you want to go to Taco Hell?
I mean,
Exactly.
saying Taco Bell's Mexican food is equivalent of saying like Panda Express is Chinese food.
Mm-mm.
Well, here's the thing. I went to Florida for the holidays, and well, we all know that how many Mexican restaurants are down there.
Yeah. But
And you still chose Taco Bell?
Mhm.
No, fortunately, I had the good nachos.
Mm.
though the funny thing is that the primary god was the soul of the great divine dragon. And when natural disasters started happening in the archipelago, humanoids prayed to that dragon to quell those calamities. On the other hand, the Oni tribes, who again are barbarous, called those calamities the Great Dragon Soul's wrath, and chose to worship them and chose to see them as a positive. Thus, you have you have the soul of the dragon being divided into a god of calm and purification, and a raging god of disasters.
Yin and Yang, everyone.
Mm-hmm. And
Mhm.
the funny thing is that Ryujin took two forms depending on who you ask. You ask the humanoids, Ryujin is the divine dragon soul, the ancestor of the dragon people, the Lil Drakens in Raxia. But among the Oni, it's the ancestor of the dragon Oni, i.e. the Drakes. And eventually, to use a Futurama reference, war were declared.
So we can't play the military off for chumps.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it.
Mhm.
But it got to a point where the leader of the Oni begged the dragon soul for a great earthquake, and the humanoid prayed to suppress the earthquake. Unfortunately, the nature of the dragon's soul cracked, and aftershocks caused volcanic eruptions throughout the islands.
Oh dear lord, both of the factions that trolled the dragon so much that it literally split itself apart.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the much like with any other war, nobody won, everybody lost, and it was decided instead that humanoids would worship the Nigi Mitama, and the Oni would worship the Aramitama.
We need to have a conflict somehow, otherwise the things will get pretty boring.
And this is also how mana shows up in this world.
Of
And-
course, in Rexia today it was one sword of shattering, and now a dragon shattering here, and now we have magic.
Yep. And event they were in a deadlock. The two sides were in a deadlock for the longest time. The Oni mastered Aramitama first, and then a dragon person turned the tide for the humans by showing the power of purifying Aramitama and converting it into Nigi-Mitama. Creating this dragon person would be the first Kanagi. And used this technique to deploy purification barriers that could suppress and convert Aramitama. The people would gather around those barriers, eventually a nation forming as a stronghold for humanoids against Oni. This is what started as the Tatsuto Sumeragi Empire.
So in other words, defensive of Fusroda.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequently, that first Kanagi would be the first Dragon Emperor. And through building Kanagi shrines in lands reclaimed from Oni, the empire expanded. Eventually, the three sacred treasures were created. And were handed to trusted individuals. These particular treasures were made by three Kazuchi blacksmiths, each of which possessed Kanagi talents, and they were secluded for a month and a night to create these artifacts. When the blacksmiths came back, their black hair had turned white as snow. The artifacts were a sword, a Magatama jewel, and a mirror. Each of them were created in a state of divine possession after extracting the essence of the dragon divine spirit, Nigi-Mitama. The three swords were the Hi-Hirono Tsurugi, or the sword was Hi-Hirono Tsurugi, then the Amairo Magatama, and the Sukugane no Kagami. Which, like I said, is in all but name the three imperial treasures. Replicas of these treasures were built throughout the lands to strengthen the barrier network. And I should note, with the start of this empire, there was also the start of a new calendar. A calendar, of course, named Dragon Year.
As you do.
Oh. And eventually you do get conflict between the Buke and Kuge, the warrior and noble class. Which led to a bit of peace that didn't last. And then the Oni started coming back. And then you've got the bullshit with the shogunate. And Aramitama starting to that had been forcibly suppressed starts to leak because one of the treasures was lost.
It's the shallow abyss when we're capable of fucking ourselves over this much.
Mm-hmm. But in order to try and stop things, first off, the culture of Buke was reformed, which is how this universe gets Bushido. this was done after the previous shogun had committed seppuku. The new one, Tatsumisago Hisaki, had reformed the Bukkei consciousness, and thus you have Bushido being formed in this setting, as well as duels taking the place of open warfare. And the peacekeeping force of Ryukyo, the Dragon Capital, was reformed into the Keibishi, which, as I mentioned, that is what the PCs are. And when it comes to the different races, I already mentioned humans and Kazuchi and Yubito and Bakeneko. There are also the dragon people. And they are not a PC because it's extremely rare for them to be Keibishi, since they're all high nobles. And some of them are part of the imperial family, so good luck with that.
I do like when settings have you can't play these people because XYZ reason, instead of just being like, oh yeah, here's everybody you can play.
Mm-hmm. There's also, while this isn't a race, there's the Torajin. Toraijin. These are basically outsiders, people from Raxia who have wandered into Ryugai. And there is the implication that while they've been around since ancient times, there's been more of them showing up. Sometimes they're treated fairly, other times they're kept in gilded cages. And a lot of them, much like in Roxia, end up becoming Keibishi because there's not a whole lot of other places for them to go. They don't fit within the social hierarchy.
I mean, you need to have your Ronins somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say these are Ronin. But obviously there is the classes. At the top is the Imperial family. Below that is the Kuge, the ancestors who demonstrated Kanagi talents as disciples of the first emperor. If a Kanagi is born outside the Kuge, they must establish a new house through patronage or marriage, or be adopted into an existing one. Below that is of course the Bukkei. Then below that is the commoners. And but there is some degree of social mobility, though it is extremely rare. If one demonstrates martial prowess, a commoner could be elevated to warrior status. And while in rural places, carrying weapons for self-defense is not going to raise an eyebrow. In cities, not so much. The biggest you can open carry is a wakizashi.
That is still a respectable size.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, non-bladed weapons are perfectly fine because they're considered tools. Which
So,
gives me a very amusing image of someone walking around with a kanebo and saying, "Oh, this is a tool."
or a giant bamboo stick.
Well, Hydra, you know what a kanebo is, right?
Not really, no.
It's a club. It's a big-ass club.
I mean, when you need to hammer a nail or something, that can still work.
Sometimes there's all metal ones, but as a general rule, this is a kanebo, and I just put it in the side chat for you.
I was say, aren't they just big? Oh, yeah, they're the big ass spiked clubs.
Ooh.
Studded,
This one has
but
studs
fair
on
point.
It,
Alright, yeah, you can definitely hammer a lot of nails with that thing. Note the sarcasm.
but I mean, technically you could.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the
But-
best kind of correct.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. I do appreciate that we don't have Ronin as a character archetype. It's something that if you're outside of if you're in that kind of circumstance where you'd be a Ronin, then you are one. Doesn't matter what your class setup is.
Yeah, I mean, Ronin is not so much of what class you're, just what your social standing is.
Yep. Though it should be noted that there is worship of what's referred to as the paradise gods. These are basically the equivalent of the Raxian gods. Usually they're tied to the ancient gods. For example, Raiko no Okami is in Raxia Lyphos. Teitan no Omekami is Taidan, and is female instead of male because Teitan is trying to fill the role of Amaterasu.
Okay.
If we're taking that pattern, then Raiko no Okami would probably be Izanagi.
Yeah.
Shien no Okami is obviously Cien. And of course, and is basically the moon god, or and Kuruiha no Okami is Kiliha. You know, the blazing emperor. Not the blazing emperor, the god of knowledge. But the point is that even though they don't go through all of the deities, I appreciate that we have a way to naturally integrate the Raxian gods. So if you have somebody who's playing priest, they have a way to use their stuff in a way that fits in the setting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. While leaving enough room to throw in a few more as well.
Hmm. Yep. Oh. Let's see. So, soul scars are present, and they are abhorred because soul scars are believed to be connected to Oni. and that strong enough soul scars trigger Aramitama. And the thing is that someone can, even a humanoid or in Oni or an Ayakashi, can be possessed by Aramitama. Their attributes become enhanced, but their personality changes. This is described as the equivalent of carrying sword shards. And Aramitama weapons are referred to as cursed. And said cursed weapons are more likely to create sword labyrinths, especially malevolent ones. And while sword labyrinths can be a way to test one's skills, there have been incidents where an item turned out to be a cursed sword.
It's not as if like actual Japanese myth doesn't have cursed items either.
Yep. And of course, Tsukumogami are still a thing. Objects that have been possessed by Aramitama and turned into monsters. But in addition to all of that, you have a sort of combat and support system when it comes to small group combat, which we will get into it a bit more detail in the future. It ends up being more about spacing. Supporters are ones that aren't directly involved in combat, but can provide skill checks to help out. I feel like this is almost a way to have the duel that you'd expect from this kind of setting, without isolating the rest of the party, which I appreciate as somebody who had to deal with many, many instances of hacking systems in Cyberpunk games where it ends up being a duet.
Yeah, either that or like, what is it, in L5R, when you have a duelist in the party, and he's like, no, I'm going to do the dueling.
At the very least, with dueling, because it's on a 3-phase setup, it's not as much of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone wants to go back to the days of, well, like you said, Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm. And because of the setup, there's a different setup when it comes to weapons and armor, because of the emphasis on spacing. I feel like this ends up reinforcing something I said regarding Legend Edition about why I'm not doing grid combat, because I would have to add a bunch of rules about spacing and attack ranges that are not worth the effort.
It would just be redundant to go beyond what you've already done.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to some of these spell lists, especially Jujutsu, something I do find interesting is it looks like the level cap is 6, because that's the highest level of spells that you can get.
I mean, it is for a nice little side adventure. I suppose then try to go for level 15 in the core rules.
And yeah, given the way things are set up, I don't think using spells like Call God would be a good idea in this kind of game.
No. 6 is definitely a nice number.
Mhm. But I will note additionally the spacing thing I mentioned before also applies to monsters. There's different degrees of spacing from 0 to 3, and that can have its own modifiers. Support, and when I say support actions, that doesn't mean just cheerleading. It can be doing randomized damage.
Or even random debuff if the trend holds.
Mm-hmm. And depending on your particular build, that determines what support actions you will have access to. But I'm skimming a lot of this because, like I said, I do want to go into more detail with the Dragon Remains blade at some point in the future. But beyond that, what do you guys think of Tales of the Dragon's Remains blade?
Hello, legally distinct Nippon.
I actually really like it, and I like how, I mean, yeah, you don't get much levels out of it, but I do like that it is basically legally distinct Japan.
It very much is, and it's done in a way I could see myself running this, especially given how much I love Samurai Theater as a whole, anyways. And even though the level cap is 6, I think we all know here that even a low level cap can still have a wide variety of builds.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
I also like how they do the classes. Like for a system that is kind of like already pretty much encourages you to multi-class, they then have kind of like the equivalent of those Pathfinder classes that like, oh, it's a little bit of this and this class put together because, OG Pathfinder wasn't the best at multi-classing.
In the case of what we have here, I'd say each of the pre-gens that I've seen tends to only focus on one class, and I think it's due to the fact that unless I'm mistaken, each of these is treated as major classes.
I mean, considering all the classes are pretty much already an amalgamation of a bunch of basic classes from the core rulebooks, it kind of makes sense that it'd be difficult to try to squeeze in like 2 different classes together with the system.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless it is possible that I may have missed something, but let me. This is one of those things that is always going to be tricky. Um, but because of it being this combination of classes, there's that. I'd say in that regard it's a better kit bash than what you saw with some of those hybrid classes in Pathfinder. And more importantly, they're classes that they're basically taking the class setup that you see and having it fit this setting. Which I think helps things immensely. Sorry to cut off, but Sig, what's your thoughts? I know you came in a bit late.
I didn't get to see many bubble worlds in this, but I do like the fact that they not only have the main settings of Sword World, but these little fun little kind of off settings.
Mm-hmm.
So, lots of game variety, which is something I like because I've yet to play this game.
Now obviously the world's most litigious role-playing game has boasted about having its own multiverse, but I think the problem with how it does it is that it doesn't want to put its foot down on what setting it's actually using as a base.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they want to go and not set the hard rules of, oh, in this setting you can't have this class or you can't have these spells.
Which, if that's the case, then I'd end up asking, why, if you're going to claim to be setting agnostic, then don't be selective about that agnosticism. Because in the same breath, I have heard how certain abilities and the like have to work a specific way because of implied setting.
That implied setting is the very reason why the Vaesian model even exists.
No, there's other reasons why that exists, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is, when it comes to doing implied setting or the like, you have to put your foot down at some point. And the more you don't put your foot down, the more the problem is made worse. But all that being said, I do appreciate the potential within Bubble Worlds, and I know there's a few homebrew Bubble Worlds. I know Aquid made one that is entirely built around gacha mechanics.
What?
No.
I mean, let's be frank, Sword World is already chock full of waifus, so at some point, you're gonna have to create a gacha.
That's not the approach he took.
I mean, fair.
I should have specified. He built it. It was built around gacha-style pulls.
All right.
Oh, but with that said, when we come back here next week, let me see what I've got on the calendar. So you remember how when we were covering 1.0, we did the two-parter covering the mechanics. We'll be doing that again for the player-facing and GM mechanics over the next 2 weeks.
Oh goodness.
That will be the refine of 2D6. Oh.
Well, everyone, load up in your drinks. We're probably going to be here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Hopefully, Fury of the Land won't run that long, but
mhm,
who knows?
we will play it by ear.
Yeah.
But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, may your adventures be grand and your treasures myriad. Stay frosty.
And
See you on the
remember to
trail.
keep your tablets as head above water.